Welcome to Conversations from Stritch. Today is Thursday, February 13th. I'm Dr. David Livingston, president of Lewis University, and I'm joined as always by Dr. Christopher Sint, our provost. It's been a great week. Yesterday we had an online learning environment with most offices working remotely. I know the snow didn't show up exactly as it had, but I think we're getting, maybe we're getting a little more able to make early decisions because we all can do remote work and remote teaching. And that is, I think, an asset. Somebody that I was with said to me, I think we all needed it anyway, even though the snow didn't show up. So we also had an event featuring author Victor Luckerson, who was on campus. We did it both online and in person. He spoke about his book, Built from the Fire, which we have talked about a little bit in past episodes because both Chris and I have read the book. I thought it was great, and I thought his presentation and really Dr. Roshanravan, Shireen, and Victor's conversation I thought was just really interesting, and the conversations and questions from the audience were great. We had about 100 online and in-person people attending. The other thing I want to just quickly mention before I turn it over to Chris, we had our Board of Trustees meeting on Monday this week. We have 4 meetings a year. There's always something significant that happens at every meeting. We kind of have it parsed out that way. And the normal thing that is kind of maybe the biggest thing that we do at this winter meeting is the approval of the capital budget for the following year. So next year's budget, the fiscal year that starts in July 1st of 2025 and runs through next spring, we approve that capital budget. And I say that because people will be receiving responses from the different offices. Different people will be communicating this. But those people that put in a request for capital projects will be letting them know whether it was approved. I will say, the big projects that were approved were primarily focused. I would say the biggest project is around the aviation expansion that we're doing. And so people will see that begin to be moving forward. It'll start mostly after students are gone. There's some architectural work that's going on right now, but it'll run starting mid-May, probably hopefully done in January, but be running, and we'll be renovating mostly the area around dispatch, so to try to allow us to have more students in that space. But there's lots of other projects, some projects that are related to deferred maintenance, so we always do work on roads and potholes and roofs and that kind of stuff. But we're always excited about the investments that we're making. Last year we saw the turf field go in, the renovations to South Hall, a couple new classrooms being redone. We were just talking about, it's going to come up later, the new movie theater. So the other things, I'd say the other big thing that happened is approval of 5 new academic programs. So we're excited about that. And we'll probably be talking about those on future shows where we'll bring in directors of certain programs, probably not all 5 of them, but we like to highlight new programs that are starting. And this is spread across all of our campuses. So there's new stuff going on in Oak Brook. There's going to be new work going on for nursing labs at our Argyle campus at St. Augustine. And the programmatic developments and the CapEx kind of weave together in that. There were some other things, but I guess less interesting things like how to refinance our debt, which is not nearly as interesting to, I think, people on this show. But Chris, there's also been a lot of really worthwhile things to brag about in terms of our colleagues, faculty and staff that have been doing some really great work.
Yeah, there's wonderful things being accomplished and great, a lot going on. Before I mention that I agree that event yesterday with Victor Luckerson was incredible turnout on kind of a strange day with the snow and so on. And just not only was it a great conversation between Dr. Roshanravan and Victor, but just incredible, really thoughtful engagement by the audience, both in person and online through the chat, and just really, really amazing questions about a really difficult topic and a really problematic piece of American history. And it was just really educational and moving and really thoughtful in all of its implications. So first thing to mention is congratulations to Professor Melissa Murphy, who recently published a study on the importance of educating non-medical school staff about food allergies. Her article, Nurse-Led Allergy Education for Non-Medical School Staff, appears in the January 2025 issue of the online journal of Issues in Nursing. Dr. Murphy's research highlights how nurse-led education programs can improve awareness, emergency preparedness, and confidence in managing allergic emergencies. Congratulations to Lewis University's Jet Fuel Review, which has been recognized by the National Council of Teachers of English as a superior magazine. That's a category, superior magazine. Over 422 student magazines were nominated in the 2024 contest. The Realm program publicly recognizes and supports excellent student-produced magazines and writing across the United States. The Jet Fuel Review is recognized every year, but I think it's important that we don't get too comfortable with how great they are and continue to celebrate them each year when they win that major award, national award. We wanted to we don't usually talk about sports news in this part of the show, but we did want to recognize men's head volleyball coach, Dan Friend, who celebrated his 400th victory at Lewis last week in a game against Lindenwood. Coach Friend is really proud of his team and commented about that. And he also was quick to comment that he has won other games before coming to Lewis. So
he was clear on that.
Even though 400 seems like a lot to him, he's won more.
I think it's 513.
It's in the 500s in his career, which is really, really special. The Luce program is back for the spring 2025 semester. 21 students are spending their semester at LaSallian University's Center for Education in Rome, where they will study while immersing themselves in the culture of Rome in Italy. And starting tonight, the Philip Lynch Theater presents Kodachrome, a play about love, nostalgia, the seasons, and how we learn to say goodbye by Adam Sinkovich. As I said, performances start tonight, go through the weekend, and run all through next weekend as well. So tickets are available still to purchase at the theater website. And there's a preview tonight, and then the tickets are available starting tomorrow night. And then also just opened, Blank Slate, an exhibition by Paul Simmons, will be on display until March 14th at the Brent and Jean Wadsworth Family Gallery here on the Romeoville campus. The exhibit includes a reception and gallery talk on February 27th from 7 to 9 p.m. Simmons is a Chicago-based artist and professor. His work explores the possibilities for invention within the printed image using the Xerox printer as a starting point. An accumulated personal library of visual information collected over the last 30 years is deconstructed, manipulated, and rearranged to create new paintings that present a familiar visual language in an evolving context. That sounds really interesting. I haven't been over there yet. I'm going to probably check it out on my way to the play tonight. And then we want to mention that the College of Humanities, Fine Arts, and Communications is inviting alumni, students, faculty, and the community to the second annual CoFac Kickback, an evening dedicated to celebrating achievements, fostering connections, and enjoying live entertainment. The event will take place from 6 to 11 on Saturday, March 8th at the Philip Lynch Theater and Wadsworth Family Gallery on the Romeoville campus. It offers networking, an open bar, and food. And the Lifetime Achievement Award will be presented to alumnus and longtime professor of communications, John Carey, who happens to be sitting on the other side of the wall helping with this broadcast. Additionally, in honor of last year's award recipient, Keith White, a special ceremony will unveil the renaming of the Studio Theater in his honor. So that's going to be really cool. So again, go to the CoFac, that's CoHFAC.org to purchase tickets for the CoFac Kickback. All right.
All of that is incredibly impressive. I guess I want to, just a couple quick additional comments. just again, really impressive. I think Dan's 400th win. Anytime somebody has the longevity, that's about kind of sticking with it, and that takes decades to do that work. And of course, for Professor John Kerry, just so excited for him. We're so proud to have him on the faculty and have him as a alum of the university, and it'll be fun to celebrate him. And of course, for Keith, honoring him in terms of the theater, his loss. So yeah, it's just a great event. There's lots going on. This is that time of year where I think we've talked in other shows. It just feels like there's such an intensity, and it feels like it kind of builds from now on and crescendos, I think, the last week of classes. So spring is intense. So today we start with the Valentine's stuff. I'm just starting to learn about Galentine's. So Galentine's celebrates the platonic side of relationships. So we have a Galentine's event with the Swans that's happening tonight. We also have Galentine's Day with Women in Aviation. That's this afternoon. And a Human Resources Management Club pop-up culture trivia night. That'll be at 4 over in Benilde. We also have Friend Fest, which is also happening at 5 tonight, and a Valentine's Day plated dinner in the faculty dining room for those people that want to. I think you had to sign up for that. So tomorrow night, Latinos in Medicine Valentine's event. Douglas Day, which is a reading from the works of Frederick Douglass throughout the day. Valentine's candygrams are available. So if you want to, this so reminds me, I got to say, this reminds me of when I was in like grade school and I would get these little Valentines and somebody in kind of crayon had written, something like,
Still happens.
I love you, Dave, and little heart next to it. So God bless all those candygrams. We love that. Movie night, and I just mentioned this, that we have a couple movies coming up. We have one tomorrow night in the big red room that is with the Alpha Phi Lambda chapter. And then Kodachrome, as Chris said, will be running this weekend. Joan and I think, are attending on Saturday night. That's our plan, so we won't go tonight to that. Saturday, again, Kodachrome, and Sunday, Kodachrome and Mass. So we got opportunities both this week and next weekend. As we move into next week, on Tuesday, Fostering Positive Mental Health in Aviation. There'll be an event there on Tuesday, as well as, and that will have, and that is, I think, now totally booked out. But I was just with Representative Kasten in Washington, D.C. He's one of our legislators that I was meeting with in D.C., and he's going to be coming, being one of the keynote speakers for that event. I will say it's very serious issues. There's a set of issues around aviation and air traffic control because we want mental health to be recognized. I think all of us care about that and we want to support it. There's sometimes fear among pilots that if they admit that they have any mental health issues, that they'll never get hired. And so this is one of those things that it's one of those things that I think as a country we're trying to address. We're going to have continuing safe zone ally training that has been going on. I think we've done more than a dozen of these events to try to make sure that our entire community is fully aware of rights and responsibilities being an ally in terms of everybody on campus, but we're especially worried about those that feel threatened by certain recent issues that the administration in Washington is taking out. Roots in Resilience, which is a Black Heritage Spotlight event, and then Dunk on Dating Violence. So that'll be a good event for a really difficult subject. I spent a lot of my personal time in my past life as a scholar working on issues around domestic violence, so always appreciate that. And then the Late Show music movie, A Mighty Wind, is playing in our new theater. So we have the big red room, but now we have a new theater in DL 250. So if you haven't seen that theater, haven't had a class in that theater, you should come over next Tuesday night, 9 o'clock, get the new theater space. And this is a great movie. We were talking about it a little bit before we got on air. Fun recollections about some really, really great music. So that'll be happening. There's also on Wednesday our community hour. Many events going on there. Every community hour I think is just filled with great opportunities. So you can see those on the screen, but there'll be the book club, a photo club event, town halls for the Student Senate. So a lot of opportunities there. The making of the film about Major League Baseball's first black player, Moses F. Walker, will also be being discussed. We also have travel for our athletic teams that are coming up. So tonight, men's and women's basketball will be at McKendree. If you have not been watching, there's so much great stuff going on. But our women's basketball team has only had 2 losses. They're really on top of their game, and I think if you haven't seen them, come and see them here. But if you want to just flip it on your iPad, feel free to watch them. Men's volleyball will be at Ball State. Won a big comeback game. We had some tough losses recently. Stunt is at Concordia. I think that's their first event as a team, and we're really excited. We were, I think, 8 episodes ago, we had our new stunt coach on the show, and she was explaining to Chris and I, because I had no idea what stunt was. I got a great sense of it, and it sounds really exciting, so that'll be a great event. And then track and field will be at the big meet in Allendale, as well as the Chicagoland Championships coming up. Sunday, women's bowling, they hosted their big event here over in Lockport, but now they're going to the Viking Classic in Rock Island. And the Vikings, if anybody doesn't know this, are the Augustana Vikings, which is my alma mater. So they're going down to Augie to do a little competition. And the Quad Cities are great if you ever get there. We also have softball that is facing Roosevelt at the Rosemont Dome, and stunt will have its second match against Quincy. These are all at Notre Dame, Indiana. Swim team is still competing in the GLVC championships, and as always, we have one of the most, we've said this before, most competitive conference in the nation in swimming, and so we oftentimes come in second or third behind the team that will likely win the national championship. So much going on campus. Again, we are celebrating everything that's going on and inviting you in to take part in it. So, Chris, you're going to introduce our guests.
Yes, I am. I'm looking forward to the conversation with our guests. Before I do that, please remember that you can email a question for our conversation by using the email address on the bottom of the screen, askus@lewisu.edu. And if you are watching this as a recorded event on YouTube, please feel free to use that email all the same, and we can get the question to our guests or to whomever might be the right person to answer it. So I'm really pleased to introduce Dr. Philip Blankenship and Dr. Hannah Klein. Dr. Blankenship is an associate professor in the Department of Psychology. He joined Lewis in 2018. Before coming to Lewis, he studied neuroscience and behavior at Northern Illinois University. He teaches research methods, statistics for the social sciences, biological psychology, and research in psychology. Dr. Hannah Klein joined the faculty in the Justice, Law, and Public Safety Studies Department in fall 2020, where she currently serves as the program director for the Masters in Criminal Justice program. She also serves as the director of the university's Center for Community Research and Education, where she has grown the center to support evaluations and other research projects in partnership with the community, offering numerous opportunities for Lewis students to engage in hands-on research with local nonprofits and other agencies. They're here today, I want to talk about all those things that I just mentioned, but they're here today to focus primarily on the CoESS conference, which is a college-wide collaboration that offers students an opportunity to present scholarly work in a relaxed atmosphere that facilitates their preparation for the celebration of scholarship. Moreover, various informational sessions provide insights from recent graduates and awareness of resources for life after Lewis. So very wonderful to welcome you both. I'm really looking forward to talking.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time.
We're always really excited to talk about different activities that students do, but especially research and scholarship and how that is brought out of them. But maybe before I get into that question, just could tell us a little bit in your own words, I just read it, but what is this conference?
So it was Really, it stemmed from an increase in our students wanting to get more research experience because they, are seeing themselves getting into PhD or wanting to get into more competitive grad programs, and we're seeing more and more that research is a really important skill set, and so we really wanted to kind of give them an opportunity to practice those skills that they're already kind of developing in research classes, and then more recently. We noticed that a lot of students are kind of working towards their baccalaureate degree, and then once they're close, their last couple of semesters, they're not really sure where to go. And so I really wanted to kind of make this an opportunity for students to get more information about careers in the social sciences or education, but also give them an opportunity to kind of network with recent graduates as well.
So could you, either one of you or both of you, give me a little sense of this in terms of how you experience our students? Because I think we have a broad range of students. We have a lot of first-gen students. We have a lot of students who are, working one or two jobs. But you're also saying there's a lot of students who are coming in, and I'm interested in whether they come to Lewis and they know when they're a first-year student, like, I want to do research, or they come here and after a semester, 2 semesters, 4 semesters, and I guess I'm most interested because some students that might be watching, or some faculty, your peers, might be like, when does this light bulb go on? I guess is what I'm wondering. Does it happen? Do you see it in working with first year students? Does it happen in the second year? Do they not get turned on to this until they have to take your research methods class, and they're like, oh yeah, I got to do research. So give me a little sense of that. My sense is it's a gradual awakening, but could you talk about how you see that happening in your classes, your interactions with students?
Sure. So the research methods is the class that really opens students' eyes to it.
And when do they take that, Hannah?
So my department, so criminal justice students and forensic criminal investigation students generally take it junior or senior year. And it's similar in psychology as well. And I always ask the question on the first day, are you here because you want to do research, or are you here because it's a required class for graduation? And I don't think I've had a student yet say that they were there because they want to do research. But I always say by the end of the semester, it's going to be one of your favorite classes you've ever taken. So I would say that's sort of the biggest. I will say there have been a couple students who I've had sort of freshman or sophomore year, and then I've connected them with SURE, our summer undergraduate research experience, and that gets them excited. But I would say probably 99% of our students are taking Dr. Blankenship's class, my class, the research methods classes in social work and political science that are in our college, and that's really where their mind is like, oh, this is a thing, and I actually enjoy this, and I want to do something. And generally we get to say to them, pick a topic as long as it's somewhat tangentially related to the field that we are in, and we will support you however possible. So it's a really fun experience of watching their brains explode. And my favorite moment is when you just see the light all of a sudden go off in their head of just like, oh, this is what research is. And I think there's often a misunderstanding of what research is. And they think to themselves, especially our first-gen students, especially students who are working, like, I don't have time for this. This is so much work. This is so hard. I don't understand what quantitative means versus qualitative. This is a whole new vocabulary. But once they're in that class and they see, oh, it's actually really fun and I can do something I really enjoy, that's where that moment comes from.
Can I ask maybe for each of you to talk a little bit about your experience of why it's important, in terms of, why, if somebody's watching and saying, well, why do you make them do that? Like, why is it required in these 2 majors, or just in general? What's your feeling of what the benefit is?
Yeah, I think beyond just, engaging in the process for research's sake, I think there's a lot of intrinsic benefits to learning the research process, engaging in the research process, that are going to make them more marketable as employees later on, or make them more competitive for graduate school, like critical thinking, being able to synthesize research, or engage with empirical literature, be able to question, what they might be receiving or receptive to in like media, getting them to be more critical about, what are they asked with those claims they're asking to accept, which I think are really valuable skills outside of being in psychology or engaging with research in general.
Yeah, that's a great point. Even if you don't do research in your future profession, which many people do, just being able to consume it as a citizen or whatever, you see the results of a lot of research, and to know what goes into it seems really helpful in terms of.
So, and I want to emphasize that, and maybe all three of you could speak on this or comment on it if you want to. So, I think that. So I was. I don't know if you were able to attend this. Chris and I were at a conference a couple weeks ago. The head of the Smithsonian was there speaking. One of the things that he said is, it's a challenging time because people often come to me, because of course they're curating research, right? That's what the Smithsonian does at its many museums. That people will come up and say, well, I think this, or I have this opinion. So we, as universities, believe there's methodologies for discovering truth. And that there might be multiple valences of truth, but there is a methodology. Could you talk, because I think this is a challenge in our country, this sense that all opinions are equal. And this is the head of the Smithsonian said, you can fire me if you want, but at the end of the day, not all opinions are equal. There is something called research, and research is very challenging. It takes a lot of time, as you said. But could you talk a little bit about that, maybe how that is playing out for you, and how you think about, because I want to go back to what Chris said, being a citizen requires me, I think, to have a sense of who should I trust. It doesn't pick a topic. It doesn't matter to me. It could be about incarceration rates. It could be about how my amygdala works. It doesn't matter. But somebody needs to be able to say to me, you should trust these people over these people. And these people are selling snake oil. And these people are giving you some sense of what we believe the approximation of truth is. So I don't know.
No, I love that question and those comments, because one of the first things I do in the first week of class, no matter what class, whether it's research methods or one of my other classes, I talk about how do you read. I teach them how to read a research article. I teach them the basics of what does an N mean when someone's like, the N is 17, and then how valid is that? How are we able to generalize this to other populations, things like that. And so I spend a lot of time talking to my students about, we need to sort of question the authority, the news, all of these different things. And one of my least favorite phrases is, if you're ever watching Good Morning America or any of those shows, they always say, new science says, and it's like, science is not a person. Who is that person? Who's funding that person? How many people were in that study? All of those kinds of things, and really being, objective about what is this research actually telling us. And I think it's such an important skill for all students to learn, is how do you read to know that something is true, and not just, oh, I saw it in the New Yorker, so I'm going to, assume that it's super valid. But how do we go and figure out, what does that really mean? And what does that mean for me as a person and, culture?
Yeah.
So just to go back to the conference a little bit, like how do students get chosen to be part of it? And maybe I'll just add the next question. What do they actually do? You know, what activities are they doing?
So it's a really hard process. No, they have to learn to write abstracts,
That's good.
which is a really important
Yeah,
skill to
yeah.
be able to summarize all of your work into 150 to 250 words. Again, getting to those marketable skills later on. And then they submit them, and they have to have a faculty mentor. And then I don't believe we've had a student not get accepted.
Which is great.
Which is great, and I think every student should be supported. And then we work with them, the faculty mentors work with the students to put together a poster, a trifold poster, very much like the 4th grade science fair.
Yep.
And then they present, and I'll let
Yeah.
Phil talk a little bit more about that.
So to answer your question, how do they get involved? In many cases, they're kind of forced to be involved. It's an
Sure, you can say that.
expected
Yeah.
to be a part of it. In many cases, the research courses that we offer, so for example, Research Methods 2 and Research in Psychology as a part of psychology, the expectation as part of the learning outcome for the course is to be able to express your findings written, but also orally. And the best way to do that is to offer an environment that's going to support that. And so to Hannah's point about how stressful students report to class being, I can remember a student last semester came up to me and she said, you know, Dr. B, this is the one class that I am so stressed out about, but it's the one I look forward to coming to most. So I really kind of appreciated that, like, it's because we're engaged in this process, and it's a lot of work to be in the research, but it's also kind of this really exciting growth moment.
So it seems to me on that front, so it's stressful because, and I want to just try to unpack this a little bit for people, because I think research is really stressful for people, and it's partly because and maybe you can comment on this, it's participatory instead of being voyeuristic. There's a way in which somebody can go through a class, U.S. history, and of course they do research in U.S. history, but I could take a class in which I'm observing the lectures, right? I'm like taking it all in, but I don't participate in creating something, and that creates stress, I think, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
And also then, once I do that, then it's also difficult for some people to speak in front of others and then answer real questions in real time when somebody's standing up there with them. So could you talk a little, and then maybe to Chris's point about like, what's the process, what do they do?
Sure.
When they're stressed, how do we help them manage, quote unquote, manage that stress to get to a point where I feel confident?
Yeah.
And can I throw one other thing in there? They also, when you do research, you fail all the time.
Yes.
Which might be, which is not, students are not prepared sometimes for that experience because they're trained to succeed,
Yeah. Or when we're presented with research and kind of mainstream media, it's this very clean, linear process. And one of the first things that I tell my students, like week 2 or week 3, when we're putting our IRB protocols together, is research is muddy. It's messy. It's real research is not as glamorous as what you might be reading in a polished article because of the amount of time that takes to get to that point. And so I think, Dave, when you're talking about this idea of being more passive versus active in the learning process, I think this is can be very different in terms of the structure of the course and the process than some of the courses that they've taken.
And I will say, one of the funniest things about it is the students are presenting to other students. We do have judging, but it's 2 faculty, and it's all faculty that they know. None of us are scary, but they are so terrified to present in front of other students. But one of my students had presented at a national conference like 3 weeks earlier on the same topic she presented at CoESS conference, and she was panicked for CoESS conference. But not for the national conference.
Because she knew the people.
She knew the people. And it was this really fascinating moment of like, oh, you just presented in front of the chair of Michigan State's criminal justice program, which is like number 2 in the country, and no sweat. But you're presenting in front of Dr. Sherwin, who's the sweetest professor of all time, and this is who makes you nervous, and it's a really interesting thing of, and students have it again. It's a learning moment for them of getting them out of their comfort zone, knowing that they are going to need to talk and learn to talk to people and present things, and problems come up. They're on these trifold boards and some of the papers fell off of them and glue ran out and those kind of things. So it teaches so many skills by doing this and putting them in these uncomfortable positions and really flipping sort of the regular pedagogical models on its head.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that, you talk about really practical skills. This feels very, very practical in this sense that there are ways in which whatever field they go into, there's this anxiety that can be heightened when I'm with people that I have to be with later at lunch, right? So, because in most companies, I have to do a PowerPoint presentation because we are thinking about this new marketing thing. We're thinking about this new whatever. We're trying to do this thing with, the police force, whatever it may be, but I'm sitting in this room with my peers who I go eat lunch with later. And if I look like a fool, if I go to a sales conference somewhere and I present and I stand at a thing and people walk by, I'm never going to see them again. So they can think I'm not prepared. They can think I'm a fool, whatever, but I'm never going to see them again. But these people, I'm meeting with them at 10, I'm presenting to our group of 18, and then we're going to all go to lunch later, and they're going to be with me at lunch. So if I look like a fool, then that's harder. So I think it is very practical, what you're saying, because that is the experience we all have, right, of being in a room with our, in some sense, our peers. Yeah. That's how work happens.
That is most common. So I want to ask, some people who are watching may not know what we're talking about in terms of like you said, they present, they sit on a panel. So in this, and we're talking about the social sciences here. So maybe just really quickly, like in the social sciences, and also the students are, as you said, Hannah, doing here at the CoESS conference what professional scholars do with their peers. And so how do you present scholarship and research in your fields?
So we tried to, collaboratively, we tried to come up with essentially an analog to what students might be expected to do, at a regional or national conference. But I think even before that, we were trying to model it after Celebration of Scholarship. So we wanted the CoESS conference to be kind of this stepping stone where they could work on those skills and kind of reduce the anxiety of public speaking, and so they would be more prepared for Celebration of Scholarship in the spring. So in terms of how we would present this, usually a little bit more scientific than a trifold poster, or in some cases, maybe you're giving a concurrent session talk like at Celebration of Scholarship. So it's really kind of, this a step toward being able to more professionally present.
Yeah, and I think you wanted to share some of the winners. Or tell us a little bit about some of the students that shared their research.
So one of the great things about
I think we have some slides on this. No?
Yeah,
hopefully, because I've not memorized every winner.
Yeah, I think we do have some slides on this.
But as the director of the Center for Community Research and Education, I sort of got to say, hey, can we put money behind this? And so we provided cash awards to our undergraduates and graduate level. So one thing I don't think we've sort of mentioned is that we also have a graduate session in the evening. So it's both undergrads and graduate students. And so on your screens now, you might see the undergraduate student winners this year. And I really want to highlight it was really close. Between first and second and third place, I believe it was 2 points between first and third. So some really impressive things. And we have students from all CoESS departments represented, so education, psychology, criminal justice, social work, sociology, and political science. And so even in the winners, we had 2 psychology winners and a pat on my own shoulder. And I didn't judge, I want to stress, I sit in the back and just help one of my students. And then at the grad level, it was so close that we actually had 2 third place winners. And so psychology, very much led by Dr. Kim Duras and her students, but third place winner was from social work. So again, really building it to get more and more departments involved.
Mm-hmm.
And just reading well, congratulations to all the students who
very
do this
much.
amazing work, and we can get a sense of how impactful and interesting the research is just from reading the titles. You know, it's such a great range of different things that are making incredible. We didn't really say this out loud yet, but research, scholarship and research also makes an impact on society directly by learning new things and new effective ways of being professionals in these fields, as in these examples. I also wanted to mention, before we run out of time, I just thought each of you might share a little bit about what your scholarship
Own
is.
research is.
And before I did that, the thing I was forgetting to say is that I also, reading those, just looking at those slides and listening to you talk about them, it is a reminder of it's an opportunity for individual faculty to have, even if you don't do all, even if you're hands off, you're still, it's a unique relationship that you have one-on-one with a student going through this process, and it's such a cool part of Lewis that we have these one-on-one relationships with students that are high performing.
It certainly is an opportunity to, as a faculty member, to mentor and practice those mentorship skills, just as much as it is an opportunity for students to practice those research skills.
And sometimes they ask a question and I don't know the right methodology, and I'm learning new methodologies, like very specific things where I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Let's figure out a way to answer that question. So that's really fun too.
Okay, so Hannah, tell us a little bit about your scholarship, your
So
research.
After years and years of hanging out with gang members and individuals involved in street crimes and going to a lot of funerals from gun violence, I now focus all of my research on how do we keep guns out of the hands of children and anyone in the first place. So safe storage policies, practices, and we're currently developing a campaign for preschools to start teaching kids about safe storage and what to do if their families about safe storage, and the kids about what to do if they see a firearm. So that's where my work is.
That's great.
So my research has really kind of been a continuation of what I started in grad school. Most of my research in grad school focused on using rodents like rats and mice, which we don't have here at Lewis. And so it was really this unique opportunity to see how I could transform the research I was doing during grad school to my own research program. And so what I've been working on, and actually collaborating with my PhD advisor at NIU, is transforming a lot of the tasks that we would have rodents do to tasks that we can have humans do. And the ultimate goal in that research is to further understand the different brain structures that contribute to how we navigate. So how do we know where we are on campus right now versus navigating to various buildings on campus? We kind of take it for granted in many cases, but when it comes to different neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's, where individuals start to wander, we kind of look at, well, what's going on in their brain? And most of the research focuses on a structure called the hippocampus. And so we've created a number of tasks that tap into the hippocampus function in that navigation process. And so we're in the process of developing AI, so using machine learning to help track some of the behaviors we're observing at the tabletop scale, so having folks do tabletop tasks, and also kind of working on ways in which we could take it from the tabletop to a smart device. So essentially creating a game or an app that we could turn into an early indicator of pathology.
That is so cool.
Fascinating.
I want to ask, I know I'm
Go
moving
ahead.
quickly because of the
Yep,
time, but Hannah, could you just tell us a little bit about the center and how it relates to scholarship and research?
Yes, so here at Lewis, we have the Center for Community Research and Education, CCRE, that focuses on working with community partners on research that they need. And it's always they ask us. We don't go into the community and say, this is what you need to research. So we do a lot of evaluation work, a lot of other research projects, and we have a lot of really cool partners, and our students get stipends and other opportunities to work on those projects and make meaningful impacts in the community right around us in Romeoville, Lockport, and other communities.
That's wonderful.
great.
And another way that, a whole other dimension of the impact of research can have on communities and people's lives.
Every project is a real world project that a community partner needs. They bring us an idea and we run with it, and some of the impacts have just been incredible, and it's very fun. And then the students get to go and present at board meetings and other things.
Right.
Again, those marketable skills.
Yeah, for sure.
And could be hired by some of the organizations we've partnered with too. So.
Wonderful.
really
Well,
awesome.
thank you both so much
Yeah.
for your work,
We
for
are-
being here today. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, it's really great. I'm always, I feel like every meeting I go to, every show that I'm on, so impressed with our colleagues, the two of you, really so grateful that you're here, that you care about our students, that you're inspiring them, creating, future flyers that are going to be out in the world making a difference. So thank you both for all that you do. So we will unfortunately have to wrap up our show. So have a great week this week. As we mentioned earlier, there's lots of opportunities. We hope you enjoy Galentine's Day or Valentine's Day, whichever is your pleasure. Please go see the theater, and there's a lot of time spent on that. Of course, our student athletes also spend a lot of time preparing. And please, we are I'll say this, Celebration of Scholarship is coming. We will talk more about that in the future, but we've just been talking about research. Our students spend a lot of time doing their research, so it's really great when their friends, people that are staff members that might be helping them with their financial aid, but they run over and see them present because they're a student worker. They're presenting their research. So support our student researchers in the coming weeks. So have a wonderful rest of your day and rest of your week. Many blessings to you and all those you love.